Good afternoon, all you humans on the interwebs, and thank you so much for joining us today for the final Roseface Community Conversation series in partnership with Lifeline. My name is Ashanti Kunene, and for the last time, I am your hostess with the mostest. Over the last 7 weeks, we have been engaging in difficult conversations relating to mental health and gender-based violence. We've covered topics like stress and anxiety, depression and body image, breaking the cycle of gender-based violence, the education of young people in a violently patriarchal society. And last week, we were speaking about the seemingly unbreakable glass ceiling. These conversations sought to create spaces for us to engage on painful and difficult topics in an open, honest, and candid manner, where we try to move past the point of simply problematizing our issues that can oftentimes just lead to us being incredibly overwhelmed and depressed, towards actively sharing insights and solutions to help each other heal as people from problems that seem insurmountable, but are at the end of the day man-made and as such can be unmade. Today, we wrap up this conversation series by looking at self-love, the topic being a self-love revolution, doing what you can with what you have where you are, and looking inwards into ourselves to find the love that will give us the will to act as effective change agents within society, because our society needs changing. Joining me today are an amazing group of women who I'll ask to please switch on their videos. We have Savannah Feek Fortune, a Gen Z entrepreneur. We have Joy Watson, a feminist researcher. We have Lwando Paso, a constitutional lawyer. Roseface founder Shekinah Donnell, and from our Lifeline partners, Sinikiwe Biela. Thank you all, ladies. Thank you so much for taking the time to engage in conversation today. I do appreciate you joining our final discussion to help us close off the Roseface Conversation series with a bang. I am really excited for today's conversation because I think it'll be healing. But before we get to the healing, a few announcements. We are recording our community discussion. We'll be posting the video to YouTube for archive once the live session is over. As always, if data is a concern, please tune in via YouTube as it's more affordable than Zoom. If you have any questions, use the Q&A function in Zoom or the comment section on YouTube. Our team is on hand to engage you during our session. And lastly, please make sure you like, follow, share, hashtag Roseface2020, tag all of us, make the digital pods happen, yes. And without further ado, I'd like to ask my guests to please take a few minutes to introduce themselves to our viewers today. And Lwando, we can start with you.
Kind of felt that I was gonna go first. Thank you, Ashanti. I'm Lwando Paso. I'm a constitutional lawyer by training, but I'm also now the founder and owner of Including Society, which is about cultivating belonging in private spaces, especially in corporates and private schools. And I'm also an author, and my first book actually is being released next week. It's called Made in South Africa, A Black Woman's Stories of Rage, Resistance, and Progress. And I am also into museum making, and I've just been a content curator for the museum that's going to be built for our Constitution, telling the story of how we made our Constitution. So I'm aspiring to be a historian one day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Savannah?
Hello. Firstly, it's such a privilege to be a part of this amazing group of women. It really is. So thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. So I am a creative strategist turned head of marketing. And I also look after Karabo Poppy. So I'm a manager. And I've produced some interesting works with Imran Christian that focuses on telling the stories in the Cape. So that's me in a nutshell. I was born in Joburg, but I'm a Cape Town girl through and through. And yeah, that's me.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you for joining, Savannah. Joy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, it's so nice to be here, and thank you so much for having me. So I'm Joy Watson. I'm a feminist researcher and writer. I work in the sort of socio-political sector and try to use my words and my writing as agents for social transformation and challenging structural inequality. I have worked on a book called Nasty Women Talk Back, and I'm working on a very exciting book now with dynamic, predominantly young Black writers called Striving for Social Equity. And I guess that, I am, in my personal life, I'm trying to live my best feminist life and trying to be kind to myself when I mess that up.
Yes, live your best feminist life. I love that. Thank you so much, Joy. See, I know you've introduced yourself before, but please, just for those that are joining for the first time.
Good afternoon. My name is Sinikiwe Biela. I'm the director of Lifeline Pietermaritzburg, and I'm a social worker by training. And I've been part of this discussion from the beginning. So for me, Rosefest has become my second home. We always in this conversation and talking about issues that are affecting women and young girls. So I'm saying today it's our last discussion there.
Thank you, Sini. Thank you, Sini. Come, Shakida, Madam Founder. You gave us this platform. So please, firstly, thank you. Thank you for bringing us all together.
My name is Shekinah. I am a singer, songwriter, and I am a festival owner that I'm very proud of. Yeah, that's me.
Sure, yeah. Okay, let's jump straight into it. And Shekinah, we can start with you. What do you understand self-love to be? And why is working on loving yourself important for being a change agent in the world? Why do you think that? But start with, what do you think? What is this thing called self-love?
Very scary word for me. But for me at the moment, I think self-love, the meaning evolves for me as I evolve. And at the moment, self-love for me is loving who I am, where I come from, what I've experienced, both good and bad, and really just owning the space that I'm in, which sounds like a whole lot of words, but it's not. It's easier said than done. Yeah.
Sure. No, thank you for sharing. I resonate with the loving who I am and owning the space that I'm in, which is not easy to do. Savannah, what do you understand self-love to be?
I think originally, like growing up, you almost see self-love as a taboo thing in high school. Like, says full fun herself, like she's full of herself.
Yes.
If you mention anything around self-love, or you say, I actually like my curly hair, my straight hair, or the color of my skin, it's almost taboo. But as I've gotten older and more into myself, I've noticed that self-love is flipping hard. It's not a face mask, okay? It's not a face mask and a hair mask. It's hard, and it's putting in the work, and it's so reflective into how you respond to people and how you receive things. Because like I would hear nasty things, and I'm an Aries, so I'm sensitive at heart. But I have a fantastic mentor by the name of Ophelia Ross Sims, and she just told me, like, if you are good with yourself, the way that you receive things you'll kind of do the work for that person while you're doing the work for yourself. So I think self-love it's in the word, loving yourself, but also doing so through how you treat people.
Exactly.
That's it from me.
Thank you. No, I resonate with doing the work and self-love through how you treat people. That's so important. Randall, what are your thoughts?
So unknowingly, I feel like the last couple of months have actually prepared me for this discussion. Because I do this thing with a very good friend of mine called Knowledge Sunday. And every Sunday we share like pieces that we've been reading. And the rule is it has to not do with our work, our professions. And we've been exploring what community means and also exploring what love means. And it's really been helpful for me to have some kind of a working definition of love. And I've learned that love is a willingness and love is a choice. A lot of people think that love is instinct and that you just fall in love or you just love beyond reason, but you choose to, and it's about a willingness, right, to extend yourself to yourself or to others for the expansion of your spiritual self, right?
Yeah.
And I've learned that self has, and by the way, the things that I'm saying are pulled from a Bell Hooks and an Audre Lorde because they make up a lot of our Knowledge Sunday. And Bell Hooks says that the self is animating, right? It's an animating force. And if you nurture the self, it allows you to engage in a very constructive way with community. It allows you to be in communion with people, right? And she says there's a difference between community and communion. Community can just be us here on this panel, right? It's just the arrival. But communion is when we start sharing. We've all brought something to the table, right? And I think you can only bring something to the table when you've nurtured the self, when you are on the journey of doing what Savannah said is the difficult work, right? It's not easy. Or what Shekinah said about loving herself is that it's about accepting who you are. And it's accepting the things that have happened to you, right? Because without that acceptance, there can't be any liberation, there can't be any freedom. And also what I've learned is that love comes with responsibility and accountability to yourself and to people that you are in community with. And I think when you love yourself, you're able to honestly and openly express care and affection and respect, and you're able to participate in community in a way that builds society. I'll get to what Audre Lorde's definition is on the next round. I think I'll just keep it there.
What? You're dropping bombs. Yes, mom. Like, but see, love comes with responsibility and accountability. You make me think of my favorite artist, Jacob Banks, in a song called Slow Up. It's like, love is just a decision. You have to decide to love somebody, including yourself. Madam Joy, when I come in there, what do you understand self-love to be?
Really enjoyed listening to that. I think that I can tell you that it's about self-affirmation, positive mantras, but I think that's what I've come to realize, that self-love is that moment when you have collapsed on your bathroom floor and your head's in the toilet pot and your mascara is smudged all over your face because you have screwed up so royally, or somebody has taken a knife and stabbed it right through your heart because he, she, they have told you that they need space, or because you've maxed out your credit card and you don't know where the next cent is coming from, or etc., etc., etc. And it's in that moment when all is broken that you go, I've got you, babe. And it's taken me a long time to be that person for me. It's about accepting me in all my limitations, in all my failures, in all my everything. That yes, I have moments of shine, I have moments of beauty, I have moments of brilliance, but I also have moments of extreme stupidity, moments of effing it all up, moments of being not nice. And it's okay because I'm on an evolution of my consciousness, and that when I mess it up, I pick myself up and just carry on. That's the journey.
Sure. Self-love is saying, I got you, babe, in the moments when no one else got you. What? I got you, babe. Yes, Joy. Thank you. Sini, what are your thoughts? What do you understand self-love to be? Give us the wisdom.
I think for me, first of all, I will say, Ashanti, it's complicated. This whole subject of self-love is complicated, and I think because of how it's perceived in the families and the communities where we live in, people that love themselves, they tend to be given certain names that at times are not so nice by communities or family members that realize that this person is in love with himself or herself. So that's why I'm saying it's complicated, but also it's complicated because people tend to focus on one aspect of self-love. So for me, self-love is that actively looking for or actually making sure that the person is emotionally well, mentally well, physically well, where we make sure that the entire well-being of a person is taken care of. So normally people tend to take care of their physical well-being, where we will put makeup, we look pretty, we'll dress nicely, and we tend to ignore or neglect our mental self-love or care, that we don't look at self-love as a holistic thing. We tend to pick and choose which part of ourselves we're going to be care a lot about, whether it's our physical looks versus the emotional side of ourselves or the mental health of ourselves. So for me, self-love is when you holistically love yourself and every aspect of your life is actually being loved. I'm saying also it's complicated because in many communities you find that people, they look at their physical well-being as number one. And even on that, you tend to see a lot of people being unhappy about certain things that they don't like in their bodies. It might be their body shape, it might be their head, it might be the nose, that would be nice if my eyes look like this. So we tend to see a lot of self-hate, if I can put it that way, in communities and in families, rather than actually seeing people portraying self-love. So it's actually very, very scarce. And that's why I'm saying, even if it's there, at times it's skewed because people are looking at things that they shouldn't be looking at. So for me, first love, it's that holistic look at oneself, but also prioritizing your own self as well as your own happiness before you even attempt to go out there and try and help other people or make other people happy. But also self-love for me, it means, or it requires a lot of braveness. Because if you love yourself enough, you'll be also brave to do some introspection. Because if you love yourself, you will want to also grow and develop yourself. So at times, we don't want to actually do introspection and we don't want to change certain things that in the long run will affect us, but we're saying we love ourselves. So loving ourselves requires a lot of braveness as well, so that we will actually go into those areas in our lives that we're scared to go to, but it's required that we visit those areas so that we can grow and develop and actually become better a human being.
Sure. So guys, we've heard that self-love is complicated. It's hard work. It's sometimes taboo. Hey?
It's not a face mask.
It's not a face mask. It's difficult work. It's not for the faint of hearted. This is not for the faint of hearted. It requires courage. So having said that, then what are the practical ways we can love ourselves holistically? Like how do you practice self-love in your own life? What I will share here is me, I found yoga and yoga changed my life. Lockdown happened, couldn't go to the gym no more, couldn't go outside no more, needed to do things to keep ourselves sane. I decided to take yoga seriously, and I promise you, there were days where I yogaed myself out of a depressive mood, like waking up crying, not wanting to get out of bed, not wanting to do shit. And then I'm like, you know what, let me do a yoga. 20 minutes later, I'm in a completely different mood. So I can sit here and say, yoga really helped me pull through pandemic because a lockdown was not going to conquer me. So this is how I love myself, guys, through the yoga. But like more so, it's combining that with meditation and my prayers and my affirmations. So when I'm flowing, it's not just about the physical aspects. It's also me saying, oh God, please help me, please help me, please help me. Oh God, please show me the way, please show me the way. So those are some of the ways that I love myself, because without that, I think, you know, if you start the day off right, it'll go okay. So Savannah, share with us, what are your personal practices of self-love in your life? What does this look like in everyday life for you? You must unmute yourself first.
Here we go, sorry. So I think lockdown showed all of us flames. I thought I was going to be chilling, baking, exercising from home. But that was not the case. Like, I thrive in chaos and I thrive in work pressure and like picking up boxes and like just being wild. I love it. So level 5 was so rough because you have to work on yourself in the silence, right? There's no noise. And in the beginning, I just completely focused on work, and like we started a COVID relief fund, and I was just like loving it and loving the pressure. But then I noticed that I was just neglecting everything. And then in the silence, you have to have difficult conversations, right? So me and my partner, for example, we think we're arguing about who ate the last ray of chocolate, but it's actually about something else. So we had to have those difficult conversations. And I noticed that I can't fill anyone else's cup up if mine is empty. So like, I love fixing people's things. If someone tells me they're looking for a job, I'm like, send me your CV. I'm going to put it in Canva. I'm going to do those things. So self-love meant putting myself on the list, practically, journaling a lot. In the same way I hold myself accountable for work things, I had to hold myself accountable to personal goals. And personal goals could be yoga, meditation, or checking in on friends, or actually telling friends, look, I can't hold space for you right now, because we all of us are made out of energy and we take things on. So like, someone will tell me something and I'll go sleep and I'll have horrible dreams about what they told me, and I'll just take it on. So it's setting up those boundaries of, like I said, right now my cup isn't full, so I can't fill you. When I'm ready, like, let's meet up, let's chat. So I think that really helped for me. And yeah, I think in lockdown, a lot of people came clean with things that sit with them, like depression and anxiety. And I always felt a bit embarrassed about being anxious. I thought people would think or see that as a weakness, like, oh, she's not going to perform, she's not going to show up, she's using it as an excuse. So I didn't talk about it. But being more vocal about it really helped me a lot. Hearing people's stories on Zoom or on social media helped a lot. So it's acknowledging that I'm anxious and also saying, hey, you know, this person, I'm around them, they make me feel kind of sick, like in just like anxious. So I'm gonna remove myself from them in a nice way, because maybe they vibe with someone else in a different way and they just get on. But for me, they just, like, all of these stresses just sits on my spirit. So I think, yeah, if I can just summarize it, protecting my energy and setting boundaries. That's how I chose to love myself, practically.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And you can attest to that is one of the most difficult things to do. Set boundaries and cut energy vampires out of your life. That thing, it's not easy work. Yeah, Joy, I saw you nodding your head there. Savannah was speaking. Do you want to come in here? What are some practical ways we can love ourselves, and how does this self-love practice manifest itself in your own personal life?
You know, I was thinking that I actually want to start this thought by saying that this is a particular challenge for us as Black women, because we're so raised in a consciousness of giving of ourselves to others, to community, to our families. And, you know, we have research that shows that we work harder, longer hours, get less rest. And so I think, you know, for me, it's about finding that balance between going deep within myself and finding that sort of time for me, balanced with extrapolating out and giving of myself to others. And then, you know, focusing that around three things really: mind, body, and soul. And, you know, in lockdown, I really started realizing how there was a time where I had a very sort of loose hold of my mind. When my dad had passed away, and I was trying to be this person because everybody knows that I'm responsible, I deliver, I keep going. And I kept doing that. I kept holding down my job, writing papers, pushing out things, holding my home together, churning. And when I talk about the concept of the mind, I mean that sort of internal radio that goes on in your head, the talk of what you fill your mind space with, the thoughts and how we think and the busyness, and how to turn that radio conversation around so that it's gentler and less hectic. And I realized that there was a huge problem going on when I started feeling this sort of subliminal rage, but I couldn't, nobody was allowing me to vent it. I was looking for somebody that I could take it out on. And so my husband was sort of the obvious target because we're in lockdown and there's only him in terms of where I can unleash. But then there was this day where we went to Sea Point and we were in the car and I was sort of screaming at my husband. And this is all because I'm not okay, but desperately trying to be okay in my grief. And I wanted to sort of rush off from him. And I got out of the car and I grabbed my mask and I was busy putting it on. And in the distance was this sort of white older woman coming towards me. And she was screaming. And at first I thought, okay, maybe she's got like some sort of mental health issue. So I was putting my mask on and trying to understand what she's saying. And then I heard her say, "You are so irresponsible. Why did you not put your mask on in the car? You can make us all sick." And I was like, "Woman, I've been waiting for you." Because there's all this rage of trying to be this perfect person. And I went, "What do you think you are? I do not need a white police civilian person." And it felt so deeply satisfying, but it alerted me to, I'm not okay. My mind's not okay. My body's not okay. My soul is not okay. And that really, you know, in this journey that we're on, we're here and then it's over, like in the blink of an eye. And how do we link on and latch on to what's important? And I want to just also add, you know, when we think about the body, that in our society, we're so conditioned to thinking of our bodies as sites of violence and trauma. We've deeply internalized this, as we should, in living in the conditions that we live in. But what have we lost in that? We've lost the ability to think about our bodies as sites of eroticism and pleasure and desire and the politics of sexuality and sex. And how do we bring all of this stuff into our notions of how we live out love and self-love? I've sort of turned the conversation now into the erotic, and I don't think that that's where you want to go. So I'm going to.
Thank you so much. Oh, wow. Londra, do you want to come in there? What are some practical?
I was going to go into eroticism, right? Because a lot of people think of it in a sexual way. And part of my Knowledge Sunday with my friend has been an introduction to eroticism in terms of its original meaning. You know, the Greek word eros, meaning love in all its personifications, right? And Audre Lorde talks about eroticism, about feeling, a deep feeling, not just sensation. Pornography gives you sensation, but when you've had real passion, even if you think of it in the bedroom, real connection and passion, you feel very deeply. And when you've had, you know, an experience with someone that you don't have deep feeling for, it's sensational, but it doesn't invoke your feeling. So her whole theory is, how do you take that sense of fullness, of wholeness, of satisfaction, eroticism, and apply it to every aspect of your life? Because as women, it's about taking eroticism in service of men and not your work and not your family, not your friends, not even like mundane things that we do every day, right? Because society recognizes the power of eroticism in women. And if we applied it in every aspect of our lives, we would be so empowered. So there is that movement to suppress eroticism. And, you know, when I think of self-love, is that eroticism becomes about enriching every aspect of my life, not making every part of my life easier or simpler or less painful. Sometimes you go through the pain and the difficulties to get that enrichment, right? And it's not just about enriching yourself, but it's about enriching others. And, you know, I'm a lawyer and I've worked at corporate firms, I've worked at big firms. And what I realized in my profession is that I was not expressing love, you know, in all of its personifications. In that, in my work, I didn't see the role of love. I just brought in the mind. I didn't bring in feeling. And, you know, since we have a singer in the group, the difference between sensation and feeling is that, you know, when you are just operating on sensation, it's more like karaoke. But when you are deep feeling, you produce music like Nina Simone because you connected to love in a deep way. You know, you sing in a different way. So if I infuse love in my work as a lawyer, then, you know, my work becomes something else. It elevates, right? But I had this blockage because everyone around me who's a lawyer, they don't think of it in terms of love or eroticism because everyone's going to look at you crazy, right? And hence I'm not a lawyer today, and I don't practice law. I still do a bit of it. And now I've moved into dealing with belonging and inclusion, and I have difficulties with the terms of inclusion and diversity and all of that. But I also realized that in helping people with creating a sense of belonging in corporate spaces, when we do the work, they just bring the cognitive, they just bring the mind. And I had an experience where I was trying to resolve a conflict, and the white woman in the conflict brought her intellect of what white tears were. But she didn't realize that in talking about white tears, she was actually, you know, weaponizing it against the young Black students that she was in conflict with. She's like, I'm not going to cry because they're going to think it's white tears. So I saw that there was a disconnect between her mind and her body and her heart. And I learned from that because I'm like, in my dialogues with Including Society, I don't just want to work on the cognitive. I want to work with the body and the mind. I mean, the body and the heart. And in my own personal journey of self-love, I've started doing this thing called tension and trauma release, where I work with my body. And if you research what it is that as human beings, we go through trauma. And when we were younger, when something traumatic happened to us, we used to shake, right? And you can see a child who's in trauma, they physically release the trauma by shaking. But over time, that instinct of releasing the adrenaline and the cortisol that is created by trauma has nowhere to go because we have learned to suppress ourselves and to freeze in moments of trauma. Ask any woman who's been in a gender-based violence sort of situation. People will ask, why don't you do anything? It's because they've conditioned themselves to freeze, or society has conditioned themselves to freeze. But it doesn't stop your body from producing adrenaline and cortisol, right? So the work that I'm doing with my body is, with all the trauma I've experienced and all the tension that I have, how do I release it? You know, how do I discharge all of that and start taking care of my body? And I've actually started seeing results. So I've moved from here to here and working with the body as part of my practice of self-love.
Oh, wow, that's so powerful. That's so powerful. Shekinah, I saw your eyes dancing there as Landa was talking. Do you want to come in, Mama? What was making your eyes dance?
I'm actually like teary from that. And I'm definitely like, I'm not the type, I'm a tough girl. So I'm like, oh my God. But wow. Wow. I feel like first of all, I feel like amazing conversation. But I feel like I have lost myself in the sensation of my job and have not been doing it from a place of love for a very long time. So it's so triggering because, you know, it's, you know, I guess for me, lockdown was perfect. And I keep telling everyone that, like, lockdown is just what I needed. I think when you are a musician in this industry and you're booked a lot and you're expected to be at a lot of places, and you're kind of used, you know, in the entertainment industry to full time, you know, whether it's a corporate or it's a festival. I found myself for 3 years doing shows after show after show after show after show and generating large income and being a very successful person on the surface of everything. But because I was so young, I wasn't developing like who I was, and I wasn't developing like how I should have been I guess. I think I was almost like switched off and just trying so hard to be this person that everyone had perceived me to be Shekinah, to be, you know, young and fun and vibrant, and to sing my songs, whatever they were, to sing about the beach or anything, you know, sort of in that capacity. But I think, you know, obviously as time went by, I got to a space where I wasn't being fulfilled by any of that, where I couldn't write a song, or I couldn't connect to, I couldn't listen to music. I didn't want to listen to music. I didn't want to hear who was a new artist. I didn't want to hear what was going on in the industry. But that changed so much because of lockdown. Lockdown gave me the opportunity to fall in love with music again, to engage with SoundCloud, to upload something on SoundCloud that nobody knows about. So it's only got 200 listens. And I'm like, 200 people listen to my song, you know? And that's unusual. If I release a song, there's a lot of people that's listening to it, and a lot of people have opinions, both good and bad. And I think really what I've learned about self-love is that I can't do it for everyone else anymore. I can't live for everyone else anymore. And 100%. You know, I'm a Libra. Thank you, Savannah. None of these people care about star signs. So thank you for bringing that up. I'm a Libra, and it represents balance. And I think with that comes a lot of people pleasing, you know, and in good or bad way. So I kind of have to be in this space where I realize that, Sheik, you need to do this for yourself. You know, you need to be happy. You need to be happy with the music that you're releasing, or you need to be happy with how you live your life. And you know, musicians haven't been making money for a long time now. And I think that was just what I needed. I needed to realize that I can survive without the money. I know I keep bringing up money, but it's crazy how much it ended up centering my environment, you know. And I think, you know, we spoke about it just now, where you think from here and not from here. And if I was thinking from here, I would have taken more breaks. I would have put my heart and my family first, and me first, and my personal development. But I was so concerned about being on this lineup, keeping up with the boys, trying to compete. The boys do 5 shows a night, you know, and I can't. So lockdown really showed me that it was important for me to do whatever it is that I wanted to do, whether I want to carry on singing, carry on writing music, work on Rosefest, whatever I have to do, I need to make sure that I'm doing it for a place of love and for me. And because it really, it gives me that sensation, like the good one, not the one that's, you know, here today, gone tomorrow, but really something that was rooted in love. So what I've been doing is trying to look at myself in the mirror, naked, because I have huge body you know, issues, and I just have to accept that this is who I am, and not in the way that I carry on eating or carry on, you know, mistreating my body, but saying that, Sheik, this is how you are today. Love it, because you're still alive, you're still breathing, you made it through a pandemic. Also, what do you have a problem? Okay, what can we do about that problem? Okay, you know what, Sheik, we can wake up every day, we can create an exercise group with my friends, and we can all jump on Zoom, and we can all do the same exercise routine on Zoom. And, you know, I know it doesn't look like I'm like all slim and everything.
Come true.
I spend a lot of time exercising. I spend a lot of time walking, going for a run. It was my birthday weekend, and I didn't drink alcohol, I just hiked. So each day I went on a new hike in a different place, and that is really how I allow myself to focus on me, because I'm in pain, my body's in pain walking up the hill, and that allows me to stop thinking about everyone and focusing on what everyone feels about me, and to actually be like, Sheik, you're out of breath, your breathing is a problem. You've noticed this in studio when you sing. So, you know, I know yours is yoga, for me it's exercise, and yeah, I told you already, TDJX, so yeah.
Sure. I resonate so much with that share, because I think this goes back again to the difficulty of setting boundaries, even boundaries for yourself. You know, when you know that you have unhealthy habits that are taking away from your life energy and not adding value to your life, being able to be accountable for your own self, for your own personal goals, and that being more important, quite frankly, than everything else. Like everything else is secondary to you, you know? You are the movie star of your life movie. No one else is the movie star of your life movie. So you need to behave accordingly. Somebody said that to me. They're like, every person in your life is either a supporting actor or an extra. Like they're literally there for a scene in your life movie. So you can't be giving supporting actors and extras more power than what they're supposed to have.
Auntie, can I say something about like something very powerful that happened between what Luanda was saying and Sheikh? That, you know, what I realized from Sheikh is that there's this constant sort of lens through which we view ourselves in our lives. And it can be sort of a male voyeuristic gaze. It can be the gaze of social media. But the pressure that comes with these lenses of how people view us, how they see us, how we present to the world, and sometimes the disjuncture between that and how we try and present to the world and who we really are, or what we allow ourselves to be when you take those lenses away. And what I get from what Luanda is saying is that when you sometimes take like there's a place for the mind and the cognitive, and there's a place for the heart and the feelings. And when we bring in and anchor ourselves to the heart and the feeling stuff about what feels right, then sometimes those lenses won't matter. You know, tremendous pressure of how we present, how we look, how people view us. Are we living, keeping up with everybody on social media, you know, like all those narratives of, I mean, I for example, wish like we could go on social media and somebody says, hey, I'm having like, because we see all these holiday pictures, food pictures, everybody's having a fabulous life. Like, I just sometimes want to see the person who goes, hey, I'm having a cut life. And that's okay, you know, because it places tremendous pressure to constantly live our lives through the lens of everything is fabulous.
Yeah. And that's very true. Social media, don't get lost in the source. People only post the good times. You never see the bad times. Sydney, I want to bring you in here so we can close off the second question. What are some of the practical ways we can love ourselves after hearing what all these amazing women have said?
I've been listening to all the amazing women, and actually everything that they've said, I concur with them. It's actually not easy to love ourselves every day the way we would love to love ourselves. Of course, because of so many things that contributes into us loving ourselves less, or sometimes even forgetting about ourselves and putting other people first. But also at times that you find that it's the things that have been said to us in the past that makes us actually to love ourselves less. Listening to some of the panelists, you could see how, for example, Shekina talks about the boys and how they're performing. The whole thing of comparing ourselves to other people, sometimes it starts from a very early age. When you're young and you get compared from home, right, up to when you get into the work place and all of this. But what has helped me as Sinikiwe to actually try and love myself every day, I learned a huge lesson from babies. I love babies, and I love actually watching them when they do their stuff. You know, babies don't listen to any negative feedback or comments from their parents. So when they learn to crawl or they learn to walk, do you know, as mothers, we have heart attack. We scream at them, we tell them, stop, don't go there, don't touch that, don't go, you're going to fall. If they had listened to their parents, all of us wouldn't be walking today. We would not actually be doing anything, because we would have listened to the people that said negative things that stopped us from trying to do anything that would have taken us to the next level. So what actually has helped me a lot is to not listen to any negative comments that are not actually constructive, or that if I look at the comment and I can see that it's going to hinder my progress or it's going to affect my well-being, actually, I've learned not to listen to it. I've adopted the attitude of the babies, and I will continue doing what I need to do, no matter how people are screaming at the background, because I know now that's not good for me. So for me, I think that's number one. Then the second thing that I try and do, Ashanti, is to spend time with myself. I think as human beings, we actually make time to actually go on a date with somebody else because we want to get to know the person better. We will spend time with this person. And we make all of that time, but we hardly make time for ourselves so that we can understand things that makes us unhappy, things that upset us, and actually find ways of dealing with those things or avoiding those things or not putting ourselves in that situation that is going to make us unhappy. So if you love yourself enough, you will not put yourself in a position or situation that is going to actually make you unhappy at the end of the day. So I try to have a date with myself and sit with myself and actually look at and do some introspection basically, instead of having dates with other people. So I try to do this, but I also revisit the past, because the past, most of the times that we currently are unhappy about, most of it in a way comes from the past. The fact that we love ourselves less, at times it comes from the past experience, the past things that were said to us, which in a way has lowered our self-esteem. Because this whole thing of self-love, it actually goes, it's very closely with self-esteem and high self-esteem or low self-esteem. So if people have believed that they were not good enough from way back, from the time they're young, at times it's very important that we revisit that and we look at what are the things that makes us to love ourselves less. And at times you find that things that were said were even not actually supported by any evidence. People just say those things, and we've been carrying those things, and we've been unhappy for years because certain things were said, and we believe those things, but unfortunately they're not true. So that's I've tried to do as well, because I believe as a child, a lot of negative things were said, and those things, they grow up with you. Also, I try my best. I mean, what Shikana was saying, that she gets compared to the boys, I was compared to other directors when I first took over as a director of Lifeline. But yes, we can't stop people from comparing us to other people, but we become our worst enemies when we compare ourselves to those people and we tend not to look at the things that we're good at. So I always try my best not to compare myself. If somebody is doing something that I really like, I will go to a person and ask, how are you doing this, and learn from that person. But I try not to compare myself, because I believe we have different strengths as human beings. And always try to have rest, because sometimes when you're highly stressed out, you are, and you're not resting, and actually you're not doing good to your body as well. One thing that I also do that people don't like, and as Joy was saying, as Black people who come from our culture, how we were raised up, is to say no. You know, sometimes you have to say no, not because you don't love the person that you're saying no to, but because you decided today I'm putting myself first. Most of the times we always say yes, 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 and we put ourselves under so much pressure because we want to appease everybody that we meet in our way. Then we are the ones that are complaining at the end of the day, because now your feet are sore, your back is sore, this is sore, your muscles are sore. But why can't we say no? And I know we don't want to say no, because then in our communities, in our families, we get actually seen as people that are not wanting to help other people. But once in a while, I believe that if we love ourselves enough, we will actually not listen to any negative comments unless they're going to be helping us move forward, and we will be able to say no. And I also, lastly, I do what I enjoy doing the most, even if it's something that people dislike, like staying in my pajamas for the whole day. For example, it's raining in Pietermaritzburg today. And people always say, why are you in your pajamas? It's so late in the afternoon. If I'm comfortable to be in my pajamas on that day, I will stay on my pajamas, because that's what I like doing. And it makes me happy. And I don't care what people think about being on pajamas the whole day, but it makes me happy. I feel at ease. I don't feel I have pressure to do something or to do work. So the moment that I change into my normal clothes, I have this pressure that now it's either I must perform or must do this work. When I stay in my pajamas, in my head, I'm kind of like relaxed. I know you're doing no work today. So I'm saying we need to be brave enough to also do things that we know that even if we do, people will judge us, but we must still do them anyway without feeling guilty. When we start doing without feeling guilty, then we'll be demonstrating self-love. When we do them, but we still feel guilty and we worry about other people, we are not as yet prioritizing ourselves. So the moment we learn to do these things and say, bugger it, I don't care what you think, I'm doing it because it makes me happy today, then it will be a true demonstration of loving ourselves and putting ourselves first.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for that. I resonate so much. And I think you've also answered a question. We have a question from Negoyo Ome, I hope I pronounced that correctly, where she asked, how does one deal with the gray area of self-love and what society may view as narcissistic behavior or selfishness? Is there a gauge to the right amount of self-love? And I think your piece now, Sini, about not listening to any negative comments and doing exactly what you want to do when you want to do it and saying no when you should, answers that. But maybe Savannah, if you want to come in here, what do you think we can share with Nagoya about how, dealing with the gray area between loving yourself and then being perceived to be selfish because you've now said no to something?
Journal, write it down, seriously figure out. I actually had to say no to a friend and it was painful, but my husband was like, switch off your phone. Because two of my friends were disagreeing and the one was saying, Savannah, like, tell her this, see, and I was like, okay, cool. And then it's like, no, I'm gonna send the numbers to each other. I told both of them to be kind to each other and I said, I'm switching my phone off, be nice, I love you both. And I put down the phone and 3 days later I checked in. And I asked one of my friends, what is it that person said that bothered you so much? Don't tell me, write it down. And write it down and figure it out. You don't have to engage with them, but figure out if they told you that you are a selfish person, work out why that was so triggering. Because if you're not a selfish person, then why was that so hurtful? Like, you need to sit alone in the silence and do the work. And then you'll figure out like that balance between like the extreme of being narcissistic and then just setting up that important boundary. I think that's really helped for me.
Yeah, that's so true. You remind me of something my aunt once shared with me. And she was just like, the truth is the truth. Ne? How someone engages with your truth is their karma. How you respond to that truth is your karma. So how people react, like it's got nothing to do with you. You must, so thank you, Savannah. Chick, do you want to maybe give a stab? How does one deal with this gray area between being perceived to be selfish when you're trying to self-love and not feeling guilty, like Sini says, not feeling guilty about the self-love?
No.
I'm always guilty about that. Always. So I guess I'm there with you, Ome. Like, how do I not feel guilty about saying, sorry, I haven't responded to your text. There's just a lot going on and I'm frazzled and I can't deal with that right now. I think yes, Savannah, figure it out. Why did it trigger you? Yes, because I'm a bit selfish, but it's coming from a place of love. Because if I don't attend to myself right now, I've been there before. I know what the outcome is. So for me, it's just really, it sucks because I know a lot of people think I'm selfish, just with how I work, and I'm not really easy to get a hold of, or, I'm very particular, but I'm at the space where I'm just like, I need to stand by it, and I need to stand by those decisions. So I think about it, like Savannah's saying, and back yourself, support yourself. Like Joy was saying, when you're face down in the toilet and mascara's running and you pick yourself up, be like, I got me.
I got you, babe.
Yeah, I got you, babe. I've been posting a lot about that. I posted a photo the other day of someone holding a girl and it said, me and also me. So basically saying I'm protecting myself and I'm also that person. And I kind of feel like I'm that a lot for myself. So I think, Ome, think about it and just understand where you're coming from and why you feel that way and stand by yourself. Yeah.
Ashanti, can I just come in there quickly because of what Savannah and Shakina have said? I think also people tend to take advantage of the people that are always helping. and they expect
Yes.
those people to be helping non-stop no matter what. Like how
Yes.
Shikana says, she knows that if she doesn't take a break, she'll end up, because actually not loving yourself have a long-lasting consequences that as a human being, you will go through those consequences by yourself alone. People that have been pushing you will not actually be there to support you when you go through that pain. So at times we need to be selfish so that we don't go through that pain. But I think people, they confuse the meaning of the narcissism, because I think if you're not selfish all the time, always, forever, they can't actually say now you're being narcissistic, because we all allowed to take time and be ourselves and actually love ourselves. But I guess because if you're helping, and you know, in Zulu, there's a saying that they use that says, "Kshawe Donsai." So if you've been pulling and assisting people, people don't expect you one day to say, "No, today I'm unable to help you." They actually take that as an offense. But I guess we need to say so that we'll be this bright, loving people that we can share our love even more, because now our batteries have been recharged. So that's how I always view it, that it's okay to say no in order to recharge my batteries. Otherwise, my batteries are going to be flat for good and nobody will get help. So at least people might not get help for one day and then be assisted moving forward, then not being assisted at all.
Yeah, you can't fill from an empty cup. Somebody was saying that. Was that Savannah? Oh, that must speak. Joy, you want to come in here, maybe with your pretty doggo?
Sorry about him. He's reminding me that it's time to go out for our. Remember that thing we saw in lockdown where suddenly all the South Africans were exercisers. This is like when we had that time between 6 and 9. And who knew that we're a nation of exercises? Like everybody was on the street. So we've got into that habit. So he knows the time now when it's time to do the South African exercise thing.
That's funny.
But I wanted to say that there's a big difference between selfishness and self-preservation. And I really think that for me, from a sort of mental health perspective, I really look after me. I preserve my sense of self so that I'm better able to give to others. So I'm very clear when it's a no and when I can't. And in fact, you will remember this, Ashanti, when you first asked me, I was so excited about coming, but I knew that I had to just be present in my grief. I just lost my dad and I needed to feel that, and I needed to lay on the floor and cry. And that, like, if I spoke to you then, it wouldn't be kind to me, and it wouldn't make sense to anybody else. So it's about like, no one's going to have our backs in the way that we can have our backs, and it's about holding our backs.
Yeah, that's so true, because you are alone with your feelings and the consequences. Like, only you are going to experience that. Londo, I want to bring you in here. What do you think about that gray area?
Maybe I'll say this because I think everyone's pretty much covered it. Maybe from this perspective of there is a danger of narcissism being parceled off as self-love. And I think people who are avoiding doing the deep work then tend to go the narcissistic route and passing it off as if it's self-love. Just like there's a difference between modesty and humility. And it's all about coming from a deep sense, right? People who are modest, it's very superficial. People who are narcissistic, it's very superficial. And I think when you do the work of self-love in a deep sense, it's about how do I cultivate the best of me in order to contribute to society? Because I always think that the end result of someone who loves themselves is that they're able to be, a good member of society, a contributing member of society that sort of channels their powers and what they're good at, right? Rather than just giving whatever. And I think the danger of narcissism is that how do the people around you feel? How do you make people around you feel? People who love themselves don't diminish other people, or they don't always center themselves in everything that they do. And I think that part of self-love is then, not shying away from communal responsibilities, because love has responsibilities and accountability, but doing it in a way that is true to your skill set and what you have to bring to society, rather than trying to fake a role that you can't play.
100%, 100%. And speaking of being able to contribute in a meaningful manner to society, I think that's a perfect segue to our final question as we come into the last half an hour of this conversation, is at a societal community level, right? And then thinking about our constitution as South Africans. Our constitution is the reason why we're celebrated all across the world as a human rights example to follow. Like, it's a beautiful, beautiful document, right? But and one can argue that its creation was an example of a community loving itself, of showing and living Ubuntu, right? So in what ways can we go back to that as a community? Because I think it's quite clear that there's a discrepancy between what's in our constitution and what our society looks like, right? Even though the constitution is an example of how we can best love ourselves as people and as a community. So what do you think, how do you think we can go back to that at a community and societal level, of loving ourselves, of actually living Ubuntu, where Ubuntu is not something that's just, you know, a nice word to say. Lando, yeah.
You know, so I'll say this about the Constitution, is that what it offers is an opportunity. And people think that what it says is guaranteed, or they think that the Constitution is a panacea. It's something that is gonna solve every single problem. And I think you even saw it in the Zuma era, where going to the courts was almost like instinctual, and it was, you know, almost the last resort for people after feeling invisible and not heard by the political sort of realm, and where people found a voice is through the Constitution and through going to the court, right? But the Constitution can't choose a path for us. You know, the choice lies with ourselves. And the Constitution can't make us not hate one another, right? It can't determine how we feel. And it can't determine, it can't engender trust amongst people and citizens. And it can't stop corruption. It can't stop men or women from being corrupt. So I think part of living in a constitutional democracy is, yes, we've got a document that constitutes us as a nation, as a community, and it sets out the ideals of what this country is and what it stands for. But unless everyone has access to that knowledge, it becomes very hard to take the first step, because a lot of people, and I can even say maybe on this panel, that we don't even know what our preamble says, right? And the vision that's articulated there. And how do you expect people to live up to a document that they don't have an intimacy with, and that they don't even own it, they don't know what it says? And so on a cerebral sense is that there's a knowledge gap in terms of what a constitution is, what it promises, and its limitations, in that it can't solve all of our problems. There's other work that we need to do that we've already discussed here. And I think part of living up to that vision of, you know, constitutionalism is asking ourselves how we can live in communion with other people, you know, living a life of service, that whether you are a brand marketing person, whether you're an academic, whether you are a singer, whether you're a lawyer, that you're doing it in service of a goal that's bigger than self, right? That contributes to society. And for me, having spent the last 3 years researching how we got our constitution, is that when you learn that story, it is a humbling story to know that you're the beneficiary of human sacrifice that led to you having a set of entitlements fought for by a people who were not entitled to anything, or the law deemed them not entitled to anything. And I think for me, part of creating that sense, or that, or achieving the vision that's in the Constitution, is maybe I said the first step is knowledge of what it says, but I think it's knowledge of its history and its deep roots. That even in 1908, you had Pixley Kaseme saying, we want a constitution over a revolution. He was already thinking of what a body of laws that recognizes him as a person. Because we've had 5 constitutions, and the first 3 constitutions did not recognize anyone on this panel as right holders entitled to privileges and disqualified by any feature of their humanhood, right? So the fact that we are recognized as human beings and what it means to live up to being human with entitlements through human rights is that just like love coming with responsibilities and accountability, it means you have entitlements, but you also have responsibilities to your fellow citizens, right? And not always looking to government and taking, but it's saying, what is my responsibility as a member of a community? And I think at the basic level, the work that we've been talking about of having some kind of deep feelings about yourself and loving yourself allows you to then be able to engage in communion with other people. And as I said, communion is arriving at the table with something to contribute. And once you can do that, then we can do the work of rolling up our sleeves and actually realizing, you know, the role or the vision that is articulated in the Constitution of the kind of society that South Africa is supposed to be in reality and practice, and not just on paper alone.
Sure. So many bars were dropped here. I don't even think I can do justice to some what you've just said. Like, I hope y'all were paying attention, man. Joy, do you want to come in here? What are your thoughts on it? I mean, Lando has said so many powerful things here about how this relates to our ability to come to the table with something to contribute and not just expecting and taking. What are your thoughts?
So I think, you know, what Lwando said is very powerful, and the Constitution certainly sets this vision with the kind of society that we want to create. But we're 25 years down the line, and it is a reality that while there has been progress, that in some ways that Constitution has been a paper tiger. I mean, you know, like it hasn't taken COVID. We knew this before COVID. But when we saw the images of people standing in snaking long queues because they were hungry and they needed to put food on their table, and we saw, you know, the reality of children not going to school and therefore not having access to food security, like there is something deeply wrong in our society. Like that kind of structural inequality is not sustainable. And it is all of our job. It affects all of us firstly. So, you know, it is ludicrous to think that you can live your safe middle-class life in your community and that you're separated from the impact of violence and socioeconomic circumstances. Like that stuff is not sustainable, and it has a ripple effect, and it's going to affect everybody in society. But more importantly, it's not right from a human rights perspective. It is, social inequity is not right. And it's all of our job to contribute towards addressing that inequity. And we can do that at 2 levels. One is, what are you prepared to give of your skills, your time, your resources? But more importantly, what are you prepared to give up? That means that doesn't come easy for you. It's not pleasant. It's a sacrifice. Some of us, you know, have privilege and power because we were born into it, and so there's inherited wealth and so on. Some of us come into privilege and power because we were lucky enough at the right time, the right place to become part of a Black middle class. If you are not part of the solution and giving up your time, your skills, your resources, and making sacrifices and giving up, you are part of the problem. And I think that is a consciousness that we have to start creating in our society. It is everybody's problem. If you're not doing something, you are part of the problem.
Sure, Savannah, I see you nodding your head there. You're agreeing with what Joy's saying. If you're not doing something, you're part of the problem.
Yep. Yeah, what a powerful conversation. I'm just like taking everything in. So I come from the Cape Flats, and So even though I don't live in a flat, it's still the flats. And it's weird because there's a road that separates the middle class where I come from and then the flats. And you drive down the M5 and you think, you know, when you're younger, you're told like, don't associate yourself with them, like they're a bit scary. You hear all of these things. But as I've grown older, I've kind of made it a point to not be a social media activist or advocate for my community. I have tried to break generational curses and generational thoughts. So when you come from that middle class family, how do you educate your family and those aunties and those uncles to support the community? And how do you support the community sustainably? Not giving them change or not giving, like, not shouting when they ask for something, or not just giving to a soup kitchen once in a while, but actually making a sustainable change. And I've been so blessed with a mother that's a social worker. So she's able to like unpack those thoughts, and like you drive through these communities, or say if you drive from, we've been driving from Joburg to Cape Town very often, and like you drive through these small communities, Northwest Province, it's part of South Africa. And you see one Checkers, one bottle store, and lots of little homes that are so similar, and you think to yourself, like, what is there for these people? Like the Checkers, and for fun you drink and you maybe have kids, and that's your life, that's the rotation. So how do we tell these people's stories authentically? And that's what I try to bring into my job at BASA, but also through my personal projects. And that's why I love working with Karabo, how she tells authentic stories, or when we work with Imran, how we actually involve sustainably. So when we work with Imran, he hires people from the community. Like, it's so cute. They're signing NDAs, they're reading through contracts. They're building up the community of Hout Bay, for example, in a way that eventually all of the projects will then be an artist walk, where tourists will eventually flow through. So yeah, I think that's important. Just that like sustainability factor when you give, just so that you don't give out of like your personal conscience. And yeah, just with power, you have this power and you have this right, and it's easy for us to throw it out there, but how do we show up for that right? So that's just my 2 cents.
Well, thank you for sharing your 2 cents. It's worth a lot more than 2 cents. Shekinah, do you want to come in here? What do you think about what Savannah is saying about, you know, giving to the community, not for ego, but because it's also the right thing to do?
So touched by it, especially because I'm adopted, and it's not something that, you know, I take for granted. And I feel like I'm such an example, you know, to know what my friend was saying this morning, like, let's normalize adoption. I'm such an example of that, because I feel like I was given a second chance. You know, someone saw me and felt like, oh, you know, this person is also a little girl. We also have a daughter. Imagine if, you know, our daughter, you know, didn't have a home. And I feel like that gift that the world gave me of a family and essentially for me a second chance it really feels like, you know, a purpose for me. And it's my purpose, and obviously somehow, you know, once again, not being dictated to by everyone else, you know, but how I feel that whatever I love to do, which is singing, writing music, how am I able to contribute with that to society, and not just to my own pocket, and not just to my own, you know, aspirations? How does me singing affect other girls in Durban? And I think it's so beautiful that you brought up community, because I've just been thinking about that a lot. How do we all come to Johannesburg, you know, and kind of feed the Gauteng community? what about where I come from and the people in Queensborough and Durban and Bel Air Primary, you know, and I know that the schools that I attended, the schools that made me, I have a responsibility to those schools. You know, as much as it feels like a burden, it might seem like a burden. No, Shekinah, please come back to the school and say a few words for the girls. You know, it's like, what am I gonna say? But it's like, it's important for me to understand that if there's someone in that hall, you know, sitting there that needs to feel inspired or encouraged or needs to feel like, oh my gosh, you know, I need to be that person. But when it comes to the Constitution, I think it's so relevant that we know what it is. It reminds me of contracts in my industry, where I'm 26 and now I'm like, what have I signed 3 years ago? I don't know what my publishing contract means, what my record contract means, what the contract I have with people in my space means. You know, it's important for us to familiarize ourselves with this thing, or even know what it is. And I can say that I'm not familiar with our Constitution and what, you know, what I need to know, you know, as a person. And therefore, how can I make a change, or how can I do anything when I'm not equipped with the understanding? How can I make judgments or accusations? How can I expect things from the government when I'm not willing to do anything, you know? And I know this is maybe it's off topic, but I've been thinking about that with pollution and littering. I kind of think to myself, how does a person feel like it's okay to just throw whatever's in their hand on the floor and not feel some sort of responsibility for it? You know, I'm walking in a game reserve. The people that come here are generally supposed to be nature lovers. Why are you coming to hike if you don't love nature? There's water bottles, there's alcohol cans, and you know what, as people, we have a responsibility, you know, for the world that we live in and the space that we have, and the people around us, to live in community. That is, like, it's so weird that those words were brought up, because those words are so important to me. Living in communities, but like, what serves your community, like exactly what was being said earlier. And I want to be a part of the community that, you know, I want to make change. And I know my dad said to me, he's like, the easiest way you can help global warming is by becoming a vegetarian, you know. And he wasn't trying to force me to be vegetarian. He was just saying, you know, if you're not out there with the psychos, my friend's one of those, the zoologists, you know, fighting for I forgot the word, for nature. Oh my God, I forgot the word. You know, what are you doing? And for me, it's being a vegetarian, and it's my second year doing it. And really, it's what can I contribute? How can I help make this place better? And I think we need to kind of hold ourselves accountable. You know, yes, lastly, this other girl said everything, this other hood healer on Instagram, she's like, everything else is working in alignment. The bees are working, everything has a purpose. You know, you don't just wake up to be, or have a beach day or whatever. She's like, you have gifts, everybody has a gift. How are you sharing that gift to make a difference? And I think, yeah, that's where I am.
Sure, no, thank you so much. I resonate so much with that. Also about just your non-off-topic, but off-topic example about the litter. I'm a firm believer that your space is also a reflection of how much you love yourself, right? And there's a saying that, you know, the longer you sit in shit, it stops smelling. You stop realizing that you're sitting in shit, right? So like, also be careful. Cindy, I want to bring you in here to answer the conversation about community, and then we're going to go into closing thoughts. Closing thoughts, guys. Closing, not clothing, closing.
Okay. I think maybe starting from what Lwando said about the Constitution, I feel that actually it will take number of years and years for people to fully understand the Constitution and actually claim what is rightfully theirs from the Constitution. I mean, we are in 25 years later, I'm sure there's still a number of people that do not even have seen the document, have not read the document. So it's just there, but not there for the many of the South Africans. But now thinking about this question in terms of how can we go back to loving ourselves as communities, and how do we then support the society in dealing with all these issues that especially Rose-Fest discussions have been dwelling on from the beginning. I think for me, most of the cultures in South Africa, we all actually believe in that spirit of Ubuntu. Most of our cultures actually believe in helping one another. So it's not only the constitution, but even our own backgrounds, our roots, they actually encourage helping each other. But where have we gone wrong? Because many years ago, in our communities, we used to help one another, whether there was a constitution or no constitution, but we still had that spirit of giving and assisting one another. But now all of that has changed. And I think for me, I think in what is actually has changed a lot is that lack of love at the family level, and that lack of love of oneself. Because if there is no love at a family level, of course, there is nothing that is going to flow into the community. Because if there is a lot of love at the family level, chances are we will actually have enough love to give to the other people at the community level, and we'll be able to actually assist one another and to give back into the community. But if people are now actually thinking about themselves, and they always, sometimes it amazes me at Lifeline, because how the organization started many years ago, Lifeline started by a group of just volunteers that were not paid a cent. They were just volunteers that wanted to actually support and through telephonic counseling people that had mental issues. And over the years, then gender-based violence was incorporated into their work. Even the gender-based violence was started by only a group of 5 women that wanted to deal with rape survivors and support them. So looking at that, those group of people, they gave themselves up into the communities so that they could be supported. And what actually drove them was to see another person with a smile on their face. So back in those days, it wasn't so much about money, but it was, again, as Joy have said, giving your skills, your expertise, so that you could actually support another person. Like what we're doing on Rose-Fest discussions, you might be not aware, but actually for me, this alone, it's actually another way of giving back to the community. How many people have they learned through Rose-Fest discussions about gender-based violence, about mental health issues, about what to do when you're in this situation? A lot of them have learned because of a group of beautiful ladies and men that have participated in these dialogues, have given up their time, their knowledge, their expertise to share with the world. I think the problem is now people think giving back, it means it must be in a monetary form, and people say, oh, but I have no money to give. How then do we, what I'm struggling with, Sinikiwe, how then do we simplify it so that people out there at the community level know and understand that they can still give back in the communities without actually coughing in their money, but they could give with their skills, with their knowledge, even helping somebody out, a child with homework, you're still giving back. So it feels like communities need to, in a way, re-educated on this whole idea of giving back into the community, so that they understand that it's not always about money. But I feel as South African, we have a lot to, in terms of resources, the knowledge we have that we can give back. I think we have actually confined ourselves into spaces to think it's always about money when it's not. And I feel that maybe we really need to go out there and start educating people out in the communities about giving back and what it means and how one can actually give back, even if it means you volunteer your time in a local church, in a local NGO, at a certain school, but you're still giving back. It doesn't have to be about the money, but you'll be assisting, like how Shikana was saying, going back to a school, doing a motivation talk, helping kids that are in that school that might actually not have seen anybody that is a celeb or popular, but now there she kind of comes and they all get motivated and they're so happy and they think, oh, I want to be a musician one day. But it's small acts that will actually change our communities and our societies, that each and every one of us can actually do, because we have some of the resources or the knowledge or the expertise. It's just that we haven't probably prioritize it in our schedules to say, this is what I need to do once a month. I think it will take us to actually put this in our diaries that once a month, I'm going to spend an hour in this particular place giving back, because it's so important to benefit our societies.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sini. Sure. Okay, ladies, we have 5 minutes. So it means all of you have 60 seconds to wrap it up for the last time on Rosefest. So Joy, I'm going to ask you for your closing thoughts.
I'm going to be very quick to respect your time thing, but I think that, what I want to take forward is that life is so short, and like, I think our goal really is to find meaning in it, to find how we hold and support others in it. Live your best life, live passionately, and give back.
Thank you. Thank you. Landa, can you give us your closing thoughts?
Yeah, with the work that we do with Including Society, we always say every time people gather for a meeting like this, that they are creating the future, they're dreaming of a future. So it's been amazing co-creating with you through conversation. And I want to say that part of the journey to self-love means divesting from a lot of things that do not align with your value system, and a lot of things that we consume that sometimes we take on as our own value system. So my parting words are, define yourself for yourself, otherwise you'll be eaten alive.
Welcome with the big buzz. Savannah?
I think for me, it's just another thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. There were parts where I kind of drifted off because I was just what all of you were saying, so thank you. And yeah, let's keep on having these conversations and listening to these conversations, even when it's not about us, or like when we're not included. Just really grateful to be here and to experience this with all of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Shekinah?
Thank you, everyone, for creating the future. Thank you, everyone, for sitting here and trying to give what you know. I'm obsessed with the idea that knowledge is power, because I feel like me going to school really changed my life. So thank you so much for you sharing your knowledge with us, everyone. And for everyone at home, let's live in communion, not community. I love that. And yeah, just try and understand that you have the answers inside of you and you have something special to share. I feel like a lot of people don't feel like they have anything to give or offer. Like Siniki was saying, we want you, we don't want your money, we don't want, we want you. You have a lot to offer. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Simi, 60 seconds.
Quick one. I think for me, it feels like as South Africans, we really need to spend time with ourselves so that we will develop that self-love. We need to take ourselves on a date quite often so that we can bond with ourselves and love ourselves enough to say no if we can't actually give at that particular time. When we can, let's actually try and give so that we could support and build our societies and communities. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, everyone, so much for engaging. And from me, also, thank you. It's been an absolute honor to be moderating all these conversations. I hope all of you have been encouraged to take these conversations forward into your own personal lives, have the courage to speak openly and honestly and candidly about the difficult things, set your boundaries, make sure that you're putting yourself first and loving yourself and taking care of your mental health. Like, we all need to heal. And with love and light, from all of us at Rosefest, thank you so much. Have a good afternoon, rest of the Sunday. Goodbye. Bye.